WordPress robots.txt file. What is it? How to use it? Should you use it for your WordPress built site? I will share with you great insights in terms of using robots.txt file. Now, there's a lot of misinformation or complex information on internet. But since you're learning with Rankia, let's go and see how you can take advantage of using robots.txt file. Robots.txt file is basically a text file. That means all we need to do is create a text document and call it robots.txt. Now let's right click and let's edit this document. Let's open the document. What goes in here? We can say user agent colon and place asterisk symbol. Let's hit enter and let's say disallow and then colon. Let's save as robots.txt, that's the file name, but let's save it in UTF-8 format. Let's save it. Let's close it. Let's open robots.txt file. Now let's try and understand what this directive is. This directive saying, you know what, user agents, the asterisk symbol says all user agents. That means whether it's Googlebot, whether it is Bingbot, whether it is Yahoo Slurp, whether it is some other ones, and there are hundreds of different user agents crawling the internet. That's how they find information, including your website. In this example video, we're talking about Googlebot, right? But once again, remember, all user agents, whether they use different names, they basically do the same thing. They're called web crawlers or robots or web robots. Okay, so they all mean the same thing. So if you've found some information saying, okay, you know what is a web crawler? What is a web robot? It's just a computer program that crawlers use to request. And internet has agreed upon, following the rules set within this document. Now, I'm not going to go into depth and explain the history of, Google, so to speak, but it's very important file for a lot of reasons, including legal reasons as well. So therefore, when we say asterisk in regular expressions, as in computer programming, usually asterisk symbol means everything. So therefore, we're saying all user agents when we place asterisk symbol. And then next line we say disallow colon. Remember that word. Even if it says disallow, don't be confused by saying, oh, I'm using that disallow word. That means I'm disallowing web crawlers or user agents. Make sense? You're not. When you say disallow colon and nothing afterwards, as we can see, there is nothing afterwards. It's just empty. Right? We're saying, I disallow you not. That means you are allowed. Okay, so that's the confusion that many people make. So when you're saying disallow colon, you're basically saying to user agents, you know what, user agents, you are allowed to access my entire website by just using this directive, okay? And let's leave it at that because that's important, okay? So that's that. That's the robots.txt file at its default. Now, where does this file go? I've created a blog post that also includes samples here, right? As you can see, there's an example. User agent, all of them, disallow, nothing. That means they are allowed. And there's also robots.txt file example for WordPress, example 2, that's a little bit more complex. Okay, and there's a sample in zip format. So if you were to visit my blog, download the file, show in folder, and then unzip, then you'll have access to sample robots.txt file, okay? And then you can basically use this for your WordPress site. But what you need to do is, I'll actually zoom in so that you see. You need to change the sitemap location. For WordPress sites, particularly if you're using plugins like Yoast, which is a popular SEO plugin, it generates sitemaps for you. Page sitemap.xml. Okay, so that's the location for my website. That means you simply need to change the location to match your sitemap locations. Okay, your website.com, page sitemap would be this, and let's put HTTPS there, because you should be using HTTPS on your website in 2019. Your website.com, that's for blog posts. And if you're using WooCommerce plugin, then you'll have product sitemap as well, okay? And once you update the file, just remove the hashtag, because hashtags are used for comments. So now, if you were to save this file, as you can see, this is more complex, right? But by just using this, you'll avoid many problems. Also, you'll tell Googlebot not to crawl certain parts of your WordPress site, whereby it shouldn't anyway, as in login page and so on. So as I've said, where does it go on your server? This is my valued client cPanel. I blurted certain things out for privacy reasons. There is a link for File Manager. Press on that. Go to your files on your server and locate public_HTML and browse into that. And in here you can upload the sample example you've downloaded from Rankia blog, or you could actually create a file straight in your web server. You can create a file and call it robots.txt and then paste the example one if you want, or you can use the Rankia samples and just copy these directives, okay? And that's where it goes. It goes on your server. It goes on the public_HTML. That's the usual naming conventions for, installing WordPress. If you have installed WordPress in a subdomain, then simply locate where your WordPress is installed and then make that file be present at that location. And then once you put that robots.txt file on your server, just go and request that text file. As you can see, this is mine here. Now, that's how we basically have robots.txt file. Now, should you use it? Yes, you should. Now, at this moment, basically, you have access to robots.txt file, 2 different examples. You can use either one, and you should be okay. Because, as you can see, one of Rankia fans saying, you know what, I'm having URL is blocked by robots.txt file in Google Search Console. And that's an issue. So using the examples that I've shared, you basically will avoid all that, okay? So now, since this is a WordPress related video, let's go and see our dashboard. And if you're using popular plugins like Yoast, go to Tools, go to File Editor, and then Yoast actually creates this file for you automatically. And you can make changes here if you want, and then save changes to robots.txt file if you're using Yoast SEO plugin. Now I'm going to demystify the confusion related to Google Search Console and using robots.txt file. I've actually created a basic illustration for you for this video tutorial. Now, Google is just a search engine, right? There is 2 processes that Google follows. One is called crawling and the other one is called indexing. The first file that Google requests, and this is by law, Google must, by law, remember that word, by law request robots.txt file. Because many years ago, people were complaining saying, you know what, I never allowed Google to see my website and my photos and so on. Make sense? And Google then turned around and said, okay, you know what, we're gonna now tell website owners they can block us accessing their website, and thus they will obey by robots.txt exclusion protocol. That means the first file Google requests when it comes to visit your website, it's robots.txt file. Remember though, at that moment, it's still in the crawling process. That means it's just requesting the URL from your website. And it first looks at this file whereby you as the website owner can tell Google, okay Google, you know what? In this example, I disallow you this path on my server. In this example, we're saying I disallow you to go and crawl this portion of my website. You can block Google crawling certain folder structures or even individual files. I'll show you how to do the individual file example so that you see. Let's open this sample file and we can say, as an example, path to my file.php. Now, if you say this to Google, or well, all user agents in this example, but since Googlebot does have a name, we can say, okay, you know what, Googlebot. When the user agent is named Googlebot, I disallow you to visit this file on my server. What if I say, okay, disallow a sample folder. Let's imagine I have a folder named sample folder on my server. I can use this example, or I can place an asterisk symbol saying whatever is within that folder, I disallow you to Googlebot. Okay, so that's the way we're meant to use it, whether individual files or even entire folder structure. So we use robots.txt file to tell Google what it can crawl and what it cannot crawl. Now let's extend on that knowledge, because if we use the example 1, that means we're not blocking Google. That means we're telling Google, you know what, Google, it doesn't matter how many pages you want to access on my site. You can follow the links on my website and follow, as in crawl them, request them, crawl them. But that's the initial process. The next process is Google then says, okay, if I'm allowed to crawl this URL, whatever is in here that I find, I'm going to now place that into my database so that it can show in my search results. So remember, there is two parts of Google crawl and index. Crawling and indexing is two completely separate processes. That's why Google Search Console will tell you problems with robots.txt file, saying to you, okay, you have a sitemap saying this is the map of my website, and then you have a directive within robots.txt file telling Google not to crawl that URL in that sitemap. Hence, issues in Google Search Console. The reason that usually happens is because most website owners, they think by just using robots.txt file, they're telling Google not to index their website. Makes sense? Because crawling and indexing are completely different processes. That's why you don't use robots.txt file to tell Google not to index. You use it to tell Google not to crawl certain parts of your website. And since this is a Rankia video, I'll share with you this insight. To avoid most problems in robots.txt file, what you should do is actually use the example 1 first and let Google access your website for a couple of weeks, because at this moment you're basically telling Google to access your entire website, right? So then there is no problems with Search Console. And then after a couple of weeks, while Google updates its database and removes the errors in Search Console, then what you can do is use no index directive for your WordPress site. I'll show you a sample. So this is Rank Your Blog, but for my valued clients, I actually go through this for WordPress. I'll show you an example. Here we're saying if it's front page, I've included a script there, so I'll remove that. Just to show you, I'll zoom in so that you see. So using PHP code in header.php file, you can say, using PHP and WordPress specific functions, say if is front page is the main domain of your site. That's the front page for WordPress. Then you can say Googlebot, I let you index it, because that's the front page. You want Google to index it. The only time that you wouldn't want Google to index it is perhaps you're running a 18+ site, requires membership and so on. Then you can say no index. But apart from that, you should use this directive. That's for Googlebot, and to cover the rest, you can use this meta tag. When we say name equals double quote robots, we're saying all user agents. Remember? All user agents. That is this here. Okay. Now, remember, indexing is indexing process. Follow is crawling process. So you don't really need to use follow if you don't want, right? So this is what you should use for your front page. Now, since this is Rank Your Video, you can then say else if is search, then no index, because Google does somehow pick up search results, which are nothing unique on your WordPress site. So that's a smart way to include no index directive, telling Google, you know what, Google, when you see some search results which has this URL pattern on your site, you can say don't index it. No index. That's what you do. Okay. Next, if you want to then say, okay, you know what, if it's category called uncategorized, don't index it, because your blog posts should be categorized. If it's else if is attachment, which are attachment pages, then you can use no index for that as well. Category, you can let Google index it, no problem, but perhaps you want to say, okay, you know what, tags, no index. Now, let me go back. Robots.txt file, you can use this directive telling Google you can access my entire website. As I've said, couple of weeks. Then while in that couple of weeks, go and use some of these samples that I'm sharing with you, that people pay me, as my valued clients pay me thousands of dollars to optimize their website using these specific codings. But now I'm sharing that with Rank Your fans, right? Because that's going to be much better WordPress optimized site for your WordPress site. That's what you should be using, because you shouldn't let Google, despite what so-called SEO experts will tell you, or even if Google encourages you to, just let us access our entire website. Not smart, because tags are just that. WordPress, by the way that it works, it creates this URL. There's nothing here. There's nothing unique here. So thus, why should I tell Google to put what's here in its database? I shouldn't. Neither should you. But then again, it's your website. Now, After a couple of weeks, once you tell Google what it should see on your website as an index, what it shouldn't index, then you can safely go ahead and use this sample. Specifically this allow the typical parts of WordPress, and then specifically allow, because Googlebot uses allow directive as well, and specifically allow JS, JavaScript files and CSS files as well. Then you'll have a better search console. As in, you'll have a better website in Search Console, and you won't waste time with certain errors that arise from robots.txt file and indexation of Google. Okay, so what else can I share with you? Okay, plugins, robots.txt file plugins. You shouldn't be using plugins because it's just a text file that you can easily upload to your server. Why use plugin? In fact, for your WordPress site, you want to avoid using plugins when you can. If it's going to take a couple of minutes to create a text file, then why in the world should you burden your WordPress site using a plugin? URLs blocked by robots.txt file, you now know what that is all about. What that is about is you told Google, you know what, Google? Here's my sitemap. You submitted a sitemap to Search Console. I'll show you. Okay. I'll block certain things out for privacy reasons, right? I'll see this valued client. So most things are blocked out. We'll go to the new Search Console. Here you'll have settings for, yes, mobile first indexing. That's the world you and I live in right now. Okay, where is it? Sitemaps. That's our sitemap. That's the location. That's an XML sitemap. If we submit a sitemap to Google, we tell Google, you know what? Whatever is in that sitemap, go and index, crawl it, index it. And if the robots.txt file is blocking that, then how can Google index it? Because it's blocking it. You're blocking it using robots.txt file. The old Search Console did have robots.txt tester. Okay, I won't show you that because I have different videos that shows you how to play around with that. And yes, so at the end of the day, it's very simple to create robots.txt file. I've given you the samples and I've given you some insights as to what to do if you're having problems with Search Console, like this valued rank FN, okay? So to avoid that, bit of work, create the file and just use this. That means don't block Google. Let a couple of weeks pass. While you're doing that, go and use these sample PHP codes. I'll end it so that you see. Let's imagine you have, that's what you want to use. Let's imagine, okay? Front page, you say index. Search results, don't index. And then you can else if. Okay, you can even else if a certain page, perhaps you have a private page and you want to not have that page in Google. If that's the case, this is what you do. Page, else if is page, single quote, let's imagine, page name, whatever the name. That's the only way, well, not only way, but the easiest way to tell Google not to index certain parts of a WordPress site by using these directives and placing them within header.php file, and they have to go within the head portion. That means locate the head portion and then just use these directives, because that's how you control what Google indexes. And once you do that, you let a couple of weeks pass, then go and use this sample. Then you have a better optimized WordPress site. So this is how you create robots.txt file. This is what it means and what Google understands in terms of creating it. You can learn more about it. Just follow the links on my site or go to these URLs, okay? So it is rather confusing if you're beginning to understand how Google works, how Search Console evaluates websites, and if you have a WordPress site and you want to use robots.txt file, despite what people say, you should use robots.txt file, even if it's the default one. Knowing that robots.txt file is used for crawling process, and to control indexation, you use no index tags. That's the easiest part, easiest way to control Google, what it can index on your website. This is how it's meant to be done. And rank SEO tip, avoid tags. And 99.9% of times, avoid attachment URLs. In fact, think like this. Whatever is unique on your WordPress site, that's what Google should index. Whatever is original and unique on your site is what Google ranks you for. The keywords that is on your URLs, that means this page here, whatever is here, that's what I want Google to rank me for. I don't want Google to rank me for this URL because there is nothing unique here. This comes from here. If that's the case, why do I want Google to grab that URL and place whatever it sees in here in its index? That's not smart. Tags, I don't want Google to index. Attachment URLs, I don't want Google to index it because Google can see this image on this URL. It can see it. It can see what's here. It can see what's on this page. It can see everything here. That includes that image. Whatever the image on this URL, Google can see it. Well, if it sees it, that's what I want Google to rank me for, including the alt attribute, which is text that is indexable by Google. Okay, tags, attachment pages, search results shouldn't be in Google's index. I thank you very much for learning with Rankia. If you benefited from this video session, please do give it a like and share it. And if you've got questions or comments, use the commenting system, whether on Rankia blog or whether on Rankia YouTube channel. And I'll talk with you in the next video session.